Well, Keith, I see that you've done a lot of work in the perennial beds. Did you have to break a sweat?
Several of them.
Several sweats?
Yes.
Multiple beads?
Multiple beads, yes.
Well, we talked about cleaning up the perennial beds, but a lot of us nowadays don't just have to worry about our perennial beds, but we have to do some winter pond care maintenance.
Yeah, and I've got kind of a large pond here. It's not probably what the average person has in their backyard. There's a lot of people who have disappearing streams and disappearing waterfalls that don't have the body of water for this stuff to fall into. But there are some general principles that work for all of this as far as winterizing.
Well, and absolutely, and one of the main things, especially with all the fall leaves falling, is, that was clever, wasn't it?
Yeah.
With the fall leaves falling is that you don't want all that gobbledygook
Right.
to get in your pond.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I have a skimmer, and most ponds would have a skimmer in it to skim off any of those leaves that come in. But if you don't have a skimmer, you could stretch some netting over the pond. I find that to be kind of a pain in the butt myself.
It's worth a skimmer just for that.
It is worth a skimmer just for that. It's that like fruit tree netting, and you can stretch it over the pond, and then every few days.
Looks like an old woman's hairnet, but
Yeah.
on a larger scale.
And you can just imagine how much fun that is to try to put on a pond. But with a skimmer it works, or you can get a skimming net that every day come out.
Kind of like you have for a swimming pool.
Like a swimming pool, exactly.
And you've also removed a lot of the perennials that were around the bed, as well as the lilies and any of the other plants, the bog plants you had growing on the edges.
Well, whether you have a pond or just a disappearing waterfall, if you've got plants around the edges or in the water, you need to get rid of those leaves before the place ices over this winter. And that's what I've done back here, is I've cut back all the bog plants around the edges here. You can see that they're all short, nice and trimmed. And then there are all the water lilies in the water there have been cut completely back, so that there are no leaves left floating, because we have a big debris pile over here. That would be stuff that would end up in the pond during the winter, rotting and causing all kinds of problems with water quality, with algae, not to mention what it would do, the noxious gases would do to your poor fish.
Noxious gases.
Noxious gases, exactly.
You're gonna gas your fish out?
That's right. Well, you get that swamp smell, that
No, I
rotten
know.
egg swamp
Well,
smell.
that's a lot of stuff. That would be a lot of
Yes.
stuff in the pond that would not be very pleasant.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I don't have that big of a pond, but that's a big pile of stuff.
Well, and that in a pond of that size, regardless of the pond size actually, it would create some difficulty with the fish and the pond care, especially come spring.
Yeah, and speaking of fish, if you do have fish in your pond and your pond is at least 2.5 to 3 feet deep, they can winter in the pond.
I don't ever turn my water feature off.
I don't either. I leave the stream running all winter long because it runs my skimmer. But there is one thing you should do, and that is to provide an opening that's always open, so that if your pond does ice over, there's always an open part of the water.
Right.
And one of the easy ways to do that is with one of these little these floating, I don't know, what do you call them?
Pond
hats?
de-icer.
Pond de-icers?
Pond de-icer.
I like these because this doesn't heat the entire volume of your pond. I mean, you couldn't afford that. The electricity would be ridiculous.
Well, and what's important to understand too is that fish, you can't take a sharp object out there and go start pounding on the ice.
No.
It actually hurts the fish.
It does.
So you can't do that. So you've got to do it in this fashion to make it safe for the fish themselves. Ponding it with a hammer after the fact is not going to help you.
No, you don't want to pound the ice. Now this is only 100 watts, so it's like a 100-watt light bulb running, and it's got a thermostat built in, so that it only runs when there's ice on the pond, when the water's cold enough to create ice. So otherwise it shuts itself off and you're not doing anything. And it's really easy. You plug it in and you just toss it in.
You know what would be good though? Hold on to the end of the cord.
Well, you want to probably have it plugged in first. So, and then speaking of fish, once your water temperatures drop below 55, 50 degrees,
No need to feed them.
stop feeding. It's not good for you to feed them.
Well, and they're not going to come to the surface anyway.
Right.
So the food just becomes part of the bacteria in the pond.
Exactly.
Speaking of
And-
bacteria,
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up.
I'm good
Good
that
segue.
way. Thank you.
You're welcome. There are bacteria that you can add to your pond, and I highly recommend them. I use them in the summer and I use them in the winter. But they're different bacteria. There are cold water bacteria. What's a good one? Microblift, Ecological Laboratories makes
Any
a
of
good
them
one.
that are meant to help
Yeah.
redevelop the healthy bacteria for pond to make it through the wintertime.
And they're down there in the pond, in the cold water, in the bottom of your pond, chewing up the leaves and the debris that blows
It's
in
like the
during the winter.
discovery zone, just munching away.
It does, and it's wonderful because then when the spring rolls around, there's not all that muck and gook at the bottom of your pond. You don't have the algae issues first thing in the spring as the water warms up. It's a much easier way to maintain your pond. And then I use it all summer long to just maintain the health of the pond.
Well, that's the most important part. All this prep work we've been doing, all this fall care, is so that you have a healthy garden in the spring. Same thing with your pond.
Minimize your maintenance chores.
I love to minimize.
Yes.
Love to minimize
Make it
chores.
easy. Speaking of minimizing, I don't like to go wading or swimming in cold water when I'm cutting
don't?
leaves. No. It's just one of those funny things. So I went ahead and invested in one of these handy dandy little clippers here. It's a extendable. So now you could even do this, MJ. Oh no, it would cause you to sweat. We wouldn't want that. But I can reach into the pond anywhere I want to, and clip it, pull it out, and not have to get wet.
I'd hate for you to break a sweat, so that works out well.
That works out really well. So check those out. This is a fun little tool to have.
Now, we also know that it isn't just the backyard in the fall season that you have to take care of, but there's a lot of things around the home that you need to take care of as well.
So we're going to go out to Home Depot, and their experts over there are going to show us just what you need to do to tighten up your house for the winter months.
Hi, this is Chef Nick from Tony's Markets. Today on Dig In, we're going to be making encrusted tenderloin with watermelon salsa.